2009 June elections of that year, you have a much more vocal and institutionally capable opposition. You had people like Rafsanjani, who are still part and parcel of the Islamic Republic, finding themselves in opposition to the hardliners. I think that was a crucial change from 2004 elections, and as we obviously know, it backfired. They overestimated their powers. I would include Khamenei, the supreme leader, and obviously Ahmadinejad and his supporters. They overstated their own powers, and they've had to deal with the consequences ever since. So I've talked about the surprise mobilization here that the regime has faced, but also another thing in that last, or this bullet point here, second to last, is the significant fact here that both sides in this confrontation have not gone all out. You have not seen people like Rafsanjani or Mohammad Khatami and other leading reformists, or Nateq Nouri, or others in that we sort of associated with the reformists being imprisoned. They have gone after them indirectly. They don't go after al-Hashemi Rafsanjani, they go after his daughter. They don't attack him, well, they do actually attack him personally, but they haven't gone as far as putting him on house arrest, the way, for instance, happened to Ayatollah Montazeri, arguably it's happened to Mir Hossein Mousavi and so on. So my point is, we have to bear in mind, because I will get to this issue later, about where's the end objective for both sides. And I think they're trying to figure out how they can get themselves out of this mess, but they haven't gone for the civil war option, if I can put it simply like that. Again, state and opposition are intertwined. This is very significant. You do not have right now one opposition that's clearly outside the state machinery. There are two oppositions, and I have a point on that. One is on the house arrest, that's Mir Hossein Mousavi. The other one is operating in institutions. And that includes a whole host of individuals who are still in positions of power. Although limited, but they're still in position of power, and obviously crucial player there is Rafsanjani. Just to refresh everyone's memory about what the elections of 2009 were about. Because this is significant, particularly if Ahmadinejad and Khamenei, the hardliners, come out of this crisis coming out of this crisis intact. These issues that we have here on this list that were playing a factor in the 2009 elections will remain significant. Some of them could become more important than others, but they will all remain significant. It's the economy, what's going to happen to the oil money. It's the issue of corruption and favoritism. Ali has done some excellent work in terms of who Ahmadinejad has brought into positions of power, who he has, as a result, sidelined. Is he going to continue that process? You've got the issue of social reform, which is significant when you look at the composition of the Green Movement today, the youthfulness of the composition, the Green Movement. Foreign policy is very significant, although we don't talk about it, but look at the nuclear issue, look at Iran's position in Iraq, and so forth. So, but lastly here, the point about, again, Rafsanjani. I really want to emphasize this issue because I think one of the reasons why I decided to put this point in was a couple of days ago when a leading anti-Green Movement clergyman came out and said, Ahmad Khatami, came out and said, okay, we have to cool it down here a bit. We're getting to a stage where we might not be able to walk back. That was something he said after Rafsanjani said, I will write a letter about one of his main critics and tell the world what I think about this individual and what he used to stand for back in the 80s. Now, some friends, colleagues will say you're overemphasizing Rafsanjani's powers, but I think we shouldn't underestimate what he could still do. Okay, let me quickly go back, or go forward, I should say, to some of the main drivers behind the protests. Again, the campaign set the stage for the crisis. It really did. If you look at and these are available, by the way, on YouTube for the Farsi speakers. I don't know if they put subtitles on them, but if you go out there, you can see how colorful this campaign was. I mean, it was something that Iran has never seen in its entire history. So the campaign and how vicious the Ahmadinejad camp was in terms of going after the three candidates that faced the incumbent was very colorful. It set the stage for a crisis. Then, arguably, the day after the elections, Ayatollah Khamenei came out and said, before the election results were announced, and said this was a divine blessing. That, the nation move on. The election result was going to be in favor of Ahmadinejad. Again, that was a very significant move on his part, which created this uproar, which also meant very quickly that it went from being an anti-Ahmadinejad campaign or movement to becoming an anti-Khamenei movement, and in many ways questioning the entire concept of an Islamic Republic and the Constitution, because they felt that the Constitution wasn't delivering, that the whole thing that particularly the young generation have been told for 30 years, that in 79 they got rid of one Shah, one dictator for democracy. Well, that was, in their eyes, proven to be a lie in June of 2009, because here was another dictator telling him that elections really weren't that significant. Pushing limits. Again, I want to emphasize this point, because if you look at the latest trends coming out of Iran, we've seen the speeches of Mehdi Karoubi. We've read the letter of Mir Hossein Mousavi, trying to take a step back from the brink, arguably. The question is, what are they trying to achieve? Is it a tactical ploy, as the hardliners are saying, or have they really decided that they don't have the powers to go all the way? They cannot fight the regime as it stands. They have to rethink their strategy, at least on a tactical level. This was a table I was referring to, and I think you can take some of these categories and change them, but I think roughly what you have here is elements that are staying with the regime for obvious reasons. I mean, Ali Khamenei obviously is staying for the regime because he feels he represents the regime. But you also have fundamentalist clergy. IRGC, Ali will talk about, are very crucial here because these are the guys with the guns. And if it came to street fights and leading up to a bloody revolution like Iran experienced in 79, IRGC would be a crucial player here in terms of what decisions they will be making. As of today, as of January 2010, IRGC is firmly against the opposition. And if you listen to the senior commanders of the IRGC, they will go all the way to crack down if that's what they have to do. The opposition, and I deliberately put the clergy on the top because I see the clergy being in the lead. I know we put a lot of emphasis, thank you, we put a lot of emphasis on the youth, on the protesters in the streets, and that's what obviously sells for cameras. But I was talking about this with Ali before, and I've always made the point, look, Iran has had limited localized protests in 94, 99, 2001, 2003. What is it that's different about 2009? What happened in 2009 that made it different? And I think if you look at all those other previous cases of limited upheaval and opposition against the regime, the difference here is that you have the clergy, part of the clergy, people like Muhammad Khatami, Rafsanjani, and a number of others who are in the opposition. They were not in the opposition before. The student and the middle classes have obviously kept the momentum, and arguably you could say people like Mousavi were led to some extent by the protesters in the streets, that they felt energized or strengthened as a result of the volume of support they had. But when you look at the organization, when you look at how they were able to, for instance, in December, to bring the people out, I don't think this was spontaneous. And I probably will be in a minority here. I think organization had a lot to do with it on the part of the opposition. And I see that organization tied to the clergy, particularly the Second Khordad movement, who were in government between 97 and 2005. You have other issues here, free media, and I think